I've got you a sparkling sparkling water. Sorry, there.
Oh, is it right? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's. Yeah, I know. It looks like.
Is it just water?
It's just water.
Yeah.
So if you're into sparkling water, Chris,
I don't mind sparkling water. I can cope with that. I thought it was a can of beer, which might be a bit of a stress moment. With I'll have some water. That's absolutely fine. It's an unusual bottle, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It looks a bit out there, but it looks like one of those Monster cans with sparkling water, man.
I say it didn't strike me as something you drink, given you just talked about being a wellness coach and health and it's not always that.
It's just a mask.
I listened to your sections of it. I can't find the link to the podcast. I was listening to your conversation with the doctor.
Oh, yeah,
about the injections and stuff.
Ozempic
That was really interesting. Really, and some of the stuff she was talking about, the cases of what people come in with, and
this is
eye opening. Yeah,
it's really eye opening, Chris, because
can confirm it's water.
Yeah, can confirm it's sparkling water. with the doctor who come in, Roberta, she obviously wants to help people lose weight who are obese. But then on the other end, there's people who are now using going online to do it, or using AI to kind of take a photo of themselves, look a bit fatter,
manipulate themselves
so they can get the injections. And the benefits, obviously losing weight is a great one, but just the fact of the health issues you get, like hair loss, vomiting, diarrhea, obviously because you're not eating as much because your appetite's gone, you're not putting any nutrition in your body, so your body's not naturally replenishing itself.
Well, there's a thing now, I'm not sure we're going to discuss the Manjaro for the next half hour, but it's interesting. There's been all the stuff now with President Trump. It's all about politics, isn't it, where he's now announced he wants US based companies that own and develop Manjaro to increase the cost. So there's loads of pieces now in the media about 1.5 million people using Manjaro across the UK. A lot of them can't afford it, but then there was an awful lot of dietitians, and one of the Royal Societies for dietitians or whatever, or GPs or whatever it was, saying this week in one of the newspapers that part of the problem is some people have not done change their diet, so they're just reducing the food because the appetite's suppressant, but they haven't had the training or the management to think, well, no, you've got to change your lifestyle with what you're eating. So then at least you get the nutrients with whatever your hunger levels are. So it was quite interesting the last couple of weeks, because I'm also getting emails about it now as a local MP from people who are saying, well, this is going to mean I can't afford to pay for this, and I've lost a lot of weight. Some people have said how much weight they've lost. In some cases, a huge amount of weight, but they're being priced out from being able to purchase Manjaro. So it's that's a different edge to it that I wasn't expecting to get casework on, but I am. And, people expect me to sort of argue the toss now to try and get the cost brought back down. It's
an interesting one because obviously you mentioned Trump, right? Was it? With his theory on it is obviously so many people want it. It's a moneymaker too, right? So he's seeing a massive spin-off on this as well, where people are seeing this change. It's easier. They want to look better. We're in a society now where social media is so big and vanity, looking good. It's like a gateway to create this, but I suppose we can go on about Manjaro another time.
Sorry.
No, it's good. Chris, man, I'm absolute pleasure to have you on. Like I said, I've been trying to go back and forth to get you on the podcast for a while. I've been admiring a lot of the things you do in the area, like social media wise. I'm watching. You obviously I've seen you with the saunas, you're with the gin distillery, you're shaking hands with the right people, you're in the right photos, and someone who's from Bridgend. I'm a massive lover of seeing this place grow, people doing well, and for me, man, you're in a position where you can make positive change, and obviously whenever you're trying to do something well, you're always going to get backlash to it, and I think I touched on it before the podcast about you got to be able to diffuse situations all the time and actually still see the light when other people are trying to derail you off. You must be a little bit crazy to be able to want to take this type of role, though, Chris.
Most people who work in politics, you haven't got to be a politician, but people who work in and around politics and politicians would say that you haven't got to be mad to do this job, but it does help. But I think that probably works with most jobs, doesn't it? But I think you do have to have a particular element of resilience, and I can't say I don't take my work home, and that stuff when people say things about me on social media doesn't hurt, because it does, because I'm a human being, and I'm a dad, and I'm a husband, and I'm a son, and family read stuff and they go, well, I know that's not true, and it's like, yeah, but don't have a row with somebody on Facebook, mum. It's not worth the hassle, and they actually want you to have that row, so it's goading you to react because they want the reaction. But yeah, I mean, it has some downsides, but I love the job.
Nice.
In a way that I think you have to if you want to do it. Doesn't mean I don't have the odd tantrum about it, because I think everyone does in their work. That you think, I'm having a bad day today, I'm going to bang my head against a wall. It might just be easier than doing the day job. Yeah. But no, I love the job. It's incredibly rewarding, and there is a lot of stuff going on in Bridgend and Porthcawl, and it's about, from my point of view, seeing through an awful lot of the white noise and just trying to find things that work for the town. And before we started, you said about some of the stuff that's happening in Bridgend Town Centre. And there's equally as exciting stuff happening in Porthcawl. It's just about making sure it works for people. Yeah. My job is about trying to make it better for the people that live there already, as well as bringing in tourists, as well as making sure that, money comes in. I had a conversation last night with one of the businesses in Bridgend Town Centre, purely at random, because I know quite a few of the owners. I was leaving the office, and we had a 20-minute chat about what was happening with his business. So I've got to go away now and think about ways in which I can help him to make the business slightly more sustainable, because they want to stay in Bridgend Town Centre. Well, part of my job.
It's interesting, isn't it? You've got to be able to work, move quick, think fast, solutions.
I mean, no one day's the same. Yeah. And the other adage in politics, you can't please all of the people all of the time. But I think in politics, you can never seem to please anybody. Apparently we do everything wrong, and and I mean, that's not quite how I think of it. But you do get critics. But yeah, it is about problem solving. You get hundreds of people every week contacting you with their problems, asking for help with stuff. I mentioned one just now in relation to sort of weight loss drugs, and you wouldn't think that would be something they'd come to your MP about, but boom. There's a problem because decisions being taken in the United States to increase the prices. That impacts somebody living in, I don't know, anywhere in the constituency, doesn't matter where they live. And they're straight on to you. This has happened. This has been said. What are you going to do about it? So, that's about writing to ministers, lobbying for changes, bringing down, trying to get the costs back under control. But that's what most cases are. People are coming in desperately looking for help. And sometimes it's about dog mess and cleaning up drains and sorting out things that you would think people would never come to their MP about, or that you may never come to your MP about. For other people, it's the most important thing in the world, and you need to help them. And that's what you're meant to do as a politician. Wow.
So how many years have you been in the position now, and how many years have you been pursuing it?
So I've been an MP just over 9 years. So I was the MP for the north of the Bridgend Borough, so Maesteg, Ogmore, Vale, Pontycymer, Pencoed for 8 years. Then last year they changed the boundaries at the general election. So rather than the north of Bridgend, I'm now the south of Bridgend. Right. So MP 9 and a bit years, and before that I was a councillor in the Vale of Glamorgan for, it was a year overlap. I've done 18 years of elected office, 9 on a council, just over 9 now as an MP. So I've been elected in one way or another since I was 24.
Wow.
Which now confirms I look very, very ragged and not aging very well, shall we say. And I think it was your 40th the other day, so it's very clear that one of us is aging better than the other.
Definitely not 40, mate. I'm 32.
Oh, okay.
Don't give me that age, Chris.
I saw a photograph the other day of you. It was just someone taking...
My brother.
Your brother. Oh, God, you do look alike. God. So, right, okay. So you're definitely aging better.
Get that shovel out. You dig it a hole.
Because you're 9 years younger than... No, sorry. 9 years younger than me. So, no wonder you're hearing better.
When my brother put that up, flipping heck, 2 other people asked me, is he 40? I was like, cheeky shit. I'm looking okay at the moment.
It looked on Instagram like they were all marking your 40th birthday. So you do a word with some people to get a bit of clarity out. Issue a statement that it was not my birthday.
You know what boys are like, man? They just, they love the bit of banter.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, they do,
Man, what is one of the key focuses at the moment in Bridgend from your area? What we're trying to do in the area? What is the key thing?
The biggest thing in Bridgend is regeneration. So there's been years and years and years of people just very keen to talk the town down, to just say, the amount of people I meet, I never come to Bridgend anymore, so you don't come here anymore. When was the last time you came? 2 years ago. So I just don't bother. And it's like, yeah, but you can't possibly know what's in Bridgend if you're not coming to the town centre. And literally just across from where we are, there's the new college campus coming into town. Just 2-3 weeks ago, they've announced the repurchasing of Wyndham House, which is at the other side of town, where they're going to move Valleys to Coast, all the staff into the town centre. You're talking about a couple of more 1,000 people in the next 2 years coming into the town centre to increase footfall. Councils or I'm working with Bridgend Council to try and get to a point where they can bring about more regeneration plans. Obviously, a lot of this is with private businesses, and there are some people who own sections of the town who are regenerating it. There's work going on right now on Knowlton Street to bring a little bit of a green space. That is better than what was there before, which was a burnt-out building that's been pulled down, and we'll see a bit of regeneration. So for me, the biggest thing is regenerating the town centre, bringing Shropshire, if I can, getting more people footfall into the town, and also letting businesses know that there's a college being built over there with loads of students, loads of staff. They will bring money. They will want to spend their money in the town centre. The college has done a really good job of making sure there isn't too many eateries, too much training. There's loads of training in the college as a college, but making sure they use businesses in the town centre as part of their training contract work. So it's a real opportunity to say to businesses, to say to investors, look again at Bridgend. I know it's had some difficult time and some difficult years, but there are some big changes going on, and there's an opportunity here. And I know there's always a struggle because we're between Cardiff and we're between Swansea, and there's a bit of like, we'd rather put investment in those places. But it's the county market town. There's a lot of people who live here, plenty of money. We're sitting in this studio where the person who manages a lot of these restaurants and bars is injecting a ton of money into the town centre. And actually, because of the train station, you could jump on a train from Cardiff, come here for an award-winning steak restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we've got, there aren't many towns with a sushi restaurant at the end, where you could have lessons on making sushi. Like, there's loads of good things happening in the town centre. But for me, it's just that trying to coordinate it, trying to get some of the politics out of it, which is a funny thing for a politician to say, but it's the truth. Yeah. And whatever your politics or none, I live here and bringing my family up here. I just want it to be better.
100%.
Easy.
Do you live in Bridgend or Porthcawl?
So we live in Brinkethin.
Nice.
So so it's just.
Don't say the address because you'll have people coming to you.
Oh well, it won't be the first time. So that's the nature of the job. But so I live in Brinkethin. Yeah.
Nice.
And before that, Pencoed. So we've lived here for nearly 10 years.
Where's your background then?
So I lived in Barry for 12, 13 years. I forget. 12 years, 13 years. And then before that, I grew up in Caerphilly. I went to primary and comp in Caerphilly. Nice. Parents got divorced when I was 19. I moved with my mother to Barry.
Nice.
That's the sob story. That's the backstory. So that's where we moved to. And I got on the Vale Council then in 2008, and then was a councillor for 9 years. But then in 2016, so like an overlap of 1 year, I became the MP for Ogmore, as it was called then. Everyone, if anyone's listening, you'd know that as my stag, the Ogmore and Garrow Valleys. Ogmore is not down by the sea; it's up in the valleys.
I love obviously for me, seeing Bridgend grow is massive for me, and Porthcawl. Like I live in Porthcawl. I love it there. I remember that when I was in Australia, I would talk to people. They'd say, "Oh, where are you from?" And if they knew Wales, I'd say, "Oh, in between Swansea and Cardiff." They're like, "Oh yeah, I know Wales." Where? I said Bridgend. And they're like, isn't that the suicide capital? And I was like, geez, that made it all the way over here. And that's a hard name to...
It is.
Like, regardless of how amazing we make this place, it's really hard to remove that name because it happened 2012, 11? Was it? Young before that?
So a little, yeah. I mean, it was a series of suicides, obviously, as you remember. Yeah. So there was a period where there was a lot of young people taking their own lives, and over the years, including quite recently, there's been people, documentary filmmakers, they describe themselves as of trying to make documentaries about what went on, quite clearly without support of the families who lost their family members. And I just think it's about trying to change the mantra about Bridgend, and just saying that isn't the only thing that we're known for, and I can't say famous, but infamous for, is about those tragic suicides. But certainly when I talk to people outside of the borough, even in London, my job obviously is 4 days a week. If you sort of say to somebody, when I was the MP for Ogmore, people would say, oh, I know Ogmore by Sea. And I go, right, no, I'm going to stop you there. Ogmore by Sea is lovely, by the way, but it's not Ogmore, the constituency. And I am the MP for Bridgend. It is one of the things, I mean, equally, mind you, Porthcawl, surfing, like the National Surf Centre, like people know the Bridgend constituency for that as well. but they will sometimes mention the suicides because it did become a huge story at the time. And I think because suicide is so serious, so significant, and it was young people, I think some people just remember it as being something that happened. It doesn't get raised with me as much as, say, it used to, but definitely had a global reach.
Yeah.
You know, because also it was, at the time, one of the things that social media was being used for, and probably was an early element of the negativities of social media. So therefore, it was a bit of an unknown as well, the idea that, you know, that you could look at these suicides and realise there was connections, and that, you know, I think it's alien to most parents now, even more so back then. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it, and it's so much more like multifaceted, but it is something that people do bring up, undoubtedly.
Yes, it's like anything, right? It's so hard. It's so hard, you know, to build a good, like in any business, to build a good name. It only takes 1 or 2 bad reviews, right, to ruin a reputation, right? And I just always think about that scenario going, regardless of how amazing we're trying to plug this place, someone's always going to have that little stigma to it, sort of thing. But moving on from that, I suppose, it's just really exciting, I suppose, on my end, what we're doing here. You mentioned you 4 days a week in London, is it?
Yeah, so Monday to Thursday London, and I come home on a Thursday, and I go back on a Monday morning.
How do you manage that, like with your own family time, with yourself?
I mean, you probably should ask my wife. I don't know. I'm not sure I'd want her to come on and do a podcast
we'll talk to her after.
about what it's like being married to an MP. So my son's 4.5. You know, we live here. I don't live in London. I know some MPs do, but I live in the constituency, always have. And my son's no different. So at the moment it's the recess, which means I can just work in the constituency every day. You know, we have a family holiday like lots of families do in the summer, but, you know, that's done and we're back, and I'm working, and my wife works in Cardiff, and he is just sort of used to it. I mean, I don't know how MPs must have done it even, say, 15 years ago with young kids, because my son and I probably talk twice a day on the camera phone. He can use the 4.5 and use the camera phone better than I can. And so we'll talk in the morning when he gets up, before he goes to school, in the evening before he goes to bed. So at least we can see each other. And then on a sort of Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, it depends how you think of the job, you know. So like, I'll go along to a lot of things on the weekend, which is in my diary as work things, you know. So you go along to fun runs, open days, fairs, craft events. There's a whole host of things you can go to, and I get invited to church events, choirs. I go to more choirs than probably is healthy for most people, but I really enjoy it. And people don't believe me, but I do. Like, I'm vice president or vice patron, so if I've got that wrong, to everybody in Porthcawl Male Voice Choir, if you're listening. But like, you know, I go all the time, and people go, "No, would you not get bored of it?" I said, "Well, not really." I said, because I quite like listening to singing, and I quite like male voice choirs. I am Welsh, by the way, like it's intrinsically built into us somewhere that we like male voice choirs, and I quite enjoy that part of the job. So my boy now comes with us to the Porthcawl Orchestra Society concerts, because they're like 4 till 6 on a Sunday. So he's been to like 2 official engagements now as you know, as the MP's son. He gets a nice front row, you know. They sort of show him out people playing the cello. There's a lovely couple who play the cello in the orchestra. You know, so you just adapt and learn to sort of cope with it all. And I don't mind going back and forth to London. You know, my wife takes the lion's share of our childcare. She's got a very demanding, very busy job herself, but you just make it work. You just manage it. I think it would be harder if I didn't live in Bridgend. I feel like it's easier for me. So if the bins don't get picked up and somebody emails ranting and raving, sometimes blaming me for the bins not being picked up, I go, no, I know I live here. I'll try and sort it out, you know. And if my office is in Bridgend town centre, so I walk through the town at least 2 or 3 times a week. So you get to see where the problems are. It doesn't mean that I think other colleagues can't make it work by flipping the lifestyle. Just for us, it works better being here. And when you have these recesses, this is a 5-week recess, it means every day I'm in the constituency, at home, seeing things going. Yesterday, I had an hour's gap in the diary. I went down to Corner Coffee in Porthcawl. Like, I love Corner. I'm so glad they're in Porthcawl. Obviously, they've got store in Cardiff, which I go to quite often, and I was down yesterday, so it's like, I'll have some lunch. So I was doing a pile of work, sitting on the benches outside the front of the Jennings buildings, just watching the view, taking, and just thinking, this is just idyllic, isn't it? So, it's just nice being at home and 100%. Seeing it very much as home, rather than thinking, I live in London, come here, I work in London, I live here. It's just simple as that for me.
Hey everyone, it's Ollie Olds here with a quick word from our incredible sponsor, Pitch Roofer. Your home is your castle, and nothing protects that castle better than a solid, reliable roof. That's where Pitch Roofer comes in. They're not just building roofs, they're building trust, community, and peace of mind. Pitch Roofer has been serving our local community for years, and what really sets them apart is their commitment to giving back, from supporting local sport teams to donating to charities. They're making a real difference beyond roofing. Together, we are stronger. Now, if your roof is looking a little worse for wear, or you are thinking it might be time for a full replacement, Pitch Roofer has got you covered with top quality solutions tailored to protect your home and boost that curb appeal. Why should you choose Pitch Roofer? Let me break it down for you. Experienced professionals. These guys know this stuff with years of expertise in residential roofing. Affordable rates, competitive pricing with no hidden costs, high quality materials, durable weather resistant products that stand the test of time. Free inspections, get the condition of your roof checked at no cost. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. They're not happy until you are. So whether it's a repair, a replacement, or you just want a peace of mind your roof is in good conditions, give Pitch Roofer a call on 01656 470016. A text message to 07540 443345 or email gerald@pitchroofer.co.uk. Pitch Roofer, building more than roofs, building a stronger community. Now, back to the show. How do you manage, obviously, having your own opinions on politics and views and values, and then obviously going up to London and having different values and views and opinions? How do you kind of orchestrate that?
Colleagues... So obviously I'm a Labour MP, confession, shouldn't be a shock to anyone if you want to Google me. I'm a Labour MP. Means I'm a Labour Party member and been a party member for more years than I can think of, more than half my life. I was worked out the other day for some bizarre reason. So it's like they call it a broad church, like there's collective views on certain things. Collective views for the Conservative Party, for Plaid Cymru, but I've got friends who are in Plaid. I don't share their particular view about breaking away Wales from the rest of the UK. Yeah. I've got to have a fight with them about it. We debate politics all the time. I just don't happen to agree with that one bit of their mantra, their policy. I can't say I've got reams of friends in the Conservative Party or in Reform. I don't know the four Reform MPs very well. But with the Conservative MPs, I know quite a lot of them. I've done loads of cross-party work. Amazing. Last year... something called private members' bills in Parliament. It means MPs get to change the law on a particular piece of law where you have to work cross-party to deliver a change. So obviously last year before the general election, Labour in opposition, Conservatives were in the government, and I managed to get the law changed and this happens to a couple of hundred people every year. When you have a baby, the mum dies in childbirth, so it still happens in this country. Like there's several hundred families a year that lose the mum in childbirth for a whole host of reasons. And I changed the law that meant that if you didn't have paternity rights, which also men don't when they have kids, or the female partner, whoever, is left with a newborn baby, that you'd have guaranteed rights to leave. It's not pay yet, but at least they changed the law to leave, which means that if you lose your partner and you've suddenly got no one to bring the baby up with, you've got all the joy of having a baby, but all the agony of losing the person that you loved. It means now the law has been changed to say that that person gets the protections to keep their job and gets the rights to leave. Now, of annual leave, So I did that with a Conservative government as a Labour MP, and we did it on like a cross-party basis. Tiny change in the law only impacts several hundred people a year, but to that person who lose their partner, where they could lose their job, lose their home, they've lost their wife, and now they've got a kid to bring up, it gives them a bit of security.
100%.
So on that sense of like where you get your views and your beliefs from, you'd be hard pressed to find a person who thinks that sort of thing shouldn't have been changed, and you should help people like that. But you can always build cross-party consensus on things.
This is that sounds like a no-brainer idea though, and it's very and it's one of those things. If someone disagrees with that, in my mind, is obviously you've never been in that situation, and
nor would you want to be.
Nor want to be in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you are in that situation, you've lost your partner, you've still got to manage,
life.
Yeah, you got bills, payments, and you've got a newborn there, like you've got to.
So at least you can have it doesn't come, as I said, it doesn't come with pay yet. It's like everything with maternity and paternity rights. The law changes a bit slower than everyone would like it to be, but the question you asked about, how you sort of believe in things and try and change things and everything else. Well, it's just a good example of where you can do it on cross-party basis, because who wants to be in that situation? No one. Of course, the House of Commons is loud and rowdy, and if anyone's ever watched it, probably watched PMQs. So it is incredibly loud. There's no other word for it. I remember when I first became an MP, and I tweeted saying something really probably so simplistic, it's ridiculous. I said, that was loud, and I had loads of people retweeting and thinking, oh, shouldn't have said that, should I? And then I had some journalists texting me saying, don't think anyone's ever said it's loud before. And I was like, well, no, I know that. I know it, but I was just a bit taken aback by how loud it was, and how, sort of the shouting and all the rest of it. But actually, most majority of the time, the chamber's quite busy, but it's not full of all 600 of us. And a lot of the time, there's loads of cross-party consensus inside the Commons, but we don't always sell it properly as politicians, so that's what goes on. I get that. It's politics. Yeah.
It's like I said at the start, though, the politics being in the Labour Party, I'm a big believer in people having confidence, people, go into these events, go into these meetings and into these arena sort of things. How do you still keep that mindset of how I've got to deliver my point? I'm dealing with people coming back at me, because obviously you're going into these roles because you want to make a change, you want to make an impact. But at the same time, you're going to get some big dogs in the industries as well. Do you know what I mean? How do you manage your own, well, I don't really know how to word this correctly, but your own, how do you dial in, essentially? If I've got this big meeting coming up, I've got this big event in London, and I've really got to be assertive in all of these areas. Is it practice? Is it just making sure you're delivering well?
There are people, I'm not one of them, who are sort of born to politics. I wanted to be a teacher.
Really?
Something went very wrong. I don't know what happened.
You've gone above teachers, mate.
No, I don't know. I part of me would still love to do it. Maybe I will in years. I don't know in years to come. But so some people are just born to it, and they have the gift of the gab. They're doing any job. It's nothing to do with being in politics. Like, some people just have a natural ability to speak and really project their point and all the rest of it. For me, I'm quite bloody minded. I'm quietly determined. I think some people locally, sort of don't think that of me. And then when something does change, or, I keep just doggedly carrying on and moaning and, and all the rest of it, however you want to describe it, it's either bloody mindedness and determination, or it's moaning, isn't it? Yeah. One or the other. So there's an element of me that's a bit like that, which is different to maybe how other people approach politics. And then for me, because it doesn't come naturally, and the thing I tell people, I've been to a visit this morning with CGI, sort of really big employer in Bridgend. Everyone probably knows the signage around the town over in the Waterton Industrial Estate. And I'm probably not in the right profession, because I hate having my photograph taken. However, I have my photograph taken all the time. And someone the other day has attacked me on social media because all I do is turn up for photographs. I wish that was true, because it's not. But that's what they want to use it as a way of attacking me. So I do have my photograph taken all the time. Doesn't mean I stand there and go, I love this. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Stood there, with a photograph. I'm not exactly the most photogenic person. I yo-yo with weight and God knows what else. So I don't really want to be lined up and going, oh, look at me, and all the rest of it. But for other people, they see a camera and it's like, click. I'm there, I'm smart, So for me, it's about prep. It's about being quite determined and dogged in the way of getting things across. But also, I can be incredibly parochial with politics. I can be quite the political animal, as they call us. But equally, I can walk into a conversation, some people will open I had a case the other day. I went in a surgery and someone said, "Oh, I've always wanted Conservative," and I said, "Okay, fair enough." And they looked a bit sort of, taken aback.
As if you're going to be like,
as if I was going to go, "Oh, well, I'm not going to help you. I'm going to walk out and storm out of the room." And I was like, "Okay, well, plenty of you about. It is allowed." So I always vote Labour, funnily enough. So, would you believe? And this person was, by the end of the conversation, it was a booked surgery appointment, and they said, "Oh, you're very different to what I was expecting." And I said, "Well, can I ask what you were expecting?" And I just assumed you'd just be this rude old socialist. And I said, "Fair enough." I said that's not who I am. I said, but people's perceptions of politicians are not helped by politicians. Let's not pretend. We don't help ourselves a lot of the time. And you talked about, they're completely different issues, but you talked about the suicides in Bridgend. So the thing that everyone would tell you by an MP, if you go home tonight and Porth Call interviewed, Chris Elmore, did he have it on his expenses?
Of course,
because it's the easiest to tackle in the world. I was a councillor when the expenses scandal happened. I got elected in 2008. Never, been to Parliament, but never involved in politics. The entire expenses scandal has been over in one way or another for about 15 years. I didn't get elected until nearly 10 years after expenses finished. And I get people on social media and emails, "Oh, so, you claimed for your lunch, have you?" Like, no. Why? Well, it's expenses. Well, one, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Two, that happened before 2010. Gordon Brown was Prime Minister. We've had a few Prime Ministers since then, just a few. And you sort of just try and deflate the argument without causing an argument. Yeah. Because there's no point. And to be honest with you, I'm too old, significantly older than you, for the record. I can't be bothered with the rowing. I'd rather walk into a room and be like, right, let's sort this out. Let's try and lobby for this change. Let's argue about how we make something better. People will say to me, "Well, you're Labour, that means you probably won't challenge the Welsh Government." That is the biggest load of garbage of an argument I've ever heard. I write letters all the time to Welsh Government ministers to say, what about investment in Bridgend? What about Pencoed railway line? It's about the level crossing. I won't bore anybody with that. It's boring, but it's important. About level crossing investment. What about now arguing over regeneration in Porth Call? So I'm back and forth with the council. It's Labour run. No great shock to anybody. It is Labour run. And I'm having meetings with council chief executive, with director of regeneration, with regeneration officers in Porth Call. And I've written a letter about housing numbers and all the things people in Porth Call are concerned about. And my job isn't to go, "Oh, I'm Labour, therefore I can say absolutely nothing about it. Thanks very much." My job is to be able to argue that my constituents want to see regeneration in Porth Call. They don't necessarily want to see flats being built on Salt Lake that are 6 stories high. But do they object to some housing? Well, probably not. Some might just object to everything. Yeah. But equally, some people will go, "Yeah, I'd quite like there to be housing built that is reserved for local residents," which some people don't believe can happen, but it can. And the 50% is affordable. I don't mind that bit. I just don't want these huge tower blocks as I drive into Porth Call to be part of what the offer is for leisure in Porth Call, because it's a seaside town. Of course. Do you know what I mean? So it's this idea that somehow I won't be willing to go to bat because we're all the same party colour. It's just not how life works. If we do the job properly, you'll argue's the wrong word, but you'll challenge
100%
to make things better for the places and people where they live.
Definitely. It makes sense. That area, so you got that new bus stop in Porth Call, yeah?
Yes. Not without controversy, I know.
Yes. There's been a lot of chat on that, right?
Yep, definitely.
A couple of mil went into that, I believe.
I'm going to get this wrong, and I'm now doing a podcast on live to Mike, which you should never do that as a politician. But I think it's more than I think it's £4 million. I think it's a lot of money. Yeah. And then behind that, you've got that area where people park, right? Yeah, Salt Lake.
So that's where the apartments.
Salt Lake. Yeah.
That's where the apartments.
Well, so the last consultation that was beginning of the year or halfway through this year, or whatever it was, is concluded now, and that was sort of the third consultation. The first one where I'd been the MP, but the third one where they've been doing this master planning around Salt Lake, Cozy Corner, which obviously has had huge regeneration. Jennings buildings, the marina, right the way up into the sand dunes past the high tide. Sandy Bay, which is, depending on who you talk to, is either notoriously been empty for 25 years or it's a real development opportunity. Literally, I was at a litter pick in Porth Call on Wednesday morning after up in Grow and Grind afterwards, and I had one conversation with I was the MP, and they were, and it was fine because they were lovely to me, but they were very angry about regeneration. I turned around, someone was waiting for the conversation to finish, like, I think the regeneration's fantastic. And I was like, oh, here we go, going to have a round up between these two people. So depending on who you talk to, and then you go up into Griffin Park, you go past the fairground. The fairground is Marmite for some people. Obviously not what's happened in the last couple of days. Like that's being investigated, the accident on the ride. But for some people who live in Porthcawl, and it isn't even people who've lived there for a long time or for a short period, I can knock a row of houses, knock doors, and every neighbour could have a different view on the fairground. Like when you talk to people in Porthcawl, some people who've lived there for 40 years, like, pull it down now. Yeah. And then you'll meet somebody who's lived there 40 years. Oh, I have so many memories of it as a kid, and how amazing it was, and the caravan park. And because that's like part of history and how time works in Porthcawl. And then you meet a new family, and there are a lot of new families moving into Porthcawl. It is quite astonishing how many people want to live by the seaside now. Pandemic has played a big part in that, and moving families in, school numbers going up in Porthcawl and so on and so forth. And they'll say, it's okay, don't mind you being there, but I'm much more of a sort of cozy corner person, and the Whale and Griffin Park was regenerated a couple of years ago, and actually I'd rather do more of the cafe culture that's there, and using the beaches and the surf centre, and that's what they're in Porthcawl for, not necessarily any sort of play park or anything else. But equally, that doesn't mean the council, and I've had this conversation with the council already, shouldn't have some sort of event space on Salt Lake that means that in the summer you can have a travelling fair. So it's another way of bringing tourists into the town centre. A bit like what they do in Aberavon. It doesn't have to be like Barry Island, something that I was very involved with regenerating when I was a councillor over there. But it can be like both those places, but it could also be like Porthcawl.
Have its own identity as well.
Yeah, it absolutely can. I was down at the new tennis court, I say new, they've been a year now, down with the Lawn Tennis Association the other week, talking to the Porthcawl Tennis Club. They've literally seen their hours of booking go into the thousands of hours, and they're oversubscribed, and they want more space. So like, I'm having conversations now with the council about, is there a way of getting a bit more regen into the regeneration scheme that brings in new tennis courts? There's mini golf planned. There's like a sort of, they're called splash pads. The one the council put in their plans, and I don't know what the outcome is yet, like, just to be clear about that again, but one of the things that they were looking to do was put a sort of water feature that you could use in the summer for the kids, and then in the winter when it's too cold could use it for something else, rather than having a splash pad. For example, like there's a couple in Barry that I was involved with, when you can't have them on in December, because oddly enough, parents aren't keen on their kids running through water in December, so could you use it for something else halfway through the year? And it's sounds like an okay idea to me. The thing is, you've got to get the comms right with the local residents to make sure that works. But then it doesn't hide away from the fact that they're on Salt Lake. There's a big allocation of very tall flats, very densely populated. Who are they for? What are they going to, who's going to be living in them? As in, is it just going to be people that can buy them as holiday lets and all the rest of it? Does Porthcawl really need that? Well, actually, part of the provision for the housing is 50% shared ownership, and allocating a chunk of them to people that are actually living in Porthcawl. So younger people that need to buy a property, get their foot on the ladder, not move out to, nothing wrong with these places, but not move out to Canelli and then hope they can move back in a couple of years' time to build a bit of equity, because house prices are expensive 100%. In Porthcawl. But does it mean that I think they should have high-rise apartments in Salt Lake that are 6 stories high, no matter how they look? Well, I've already told the officers, no, I don't. But some people just assume I must support the scheme. And it's like, no, because I'd like it to be a tourist destination and have housing for people to live in. I'm not
100%. Find the line.
You got to have a line somewhere of getting the regeneration right that works for people who live in Porthcawl, works for people that will move to Porthcawl, and works for people that want to visit Porthcawl.
100%. Well, I'm a big believer in, you're not going to please everyone, as you can tell, Chris, just from listening. But like you just said then about the fair, my dad's 74, he's brought up in Canelli. He used to go to the fair, and when we talk about that, he's like, oh, I'm really gutted they're knocking that down because I've got so many memories there. But I'm like, Dad, that thing is old. I said, it's not used for majority of the year. I said, you get a window of a month or two, it's good weather and it gets jam-packed. The rest of the year, it's just there. I was like, personally, I think it needs to be regenerated. what is society doing now? More people are into coffee shops. More people are doing like working from other areas, like working. So they want these nice locations.
Well, look at the success of Corner.
Yeah,
exactly. When I was down there the other day, I mean, I was working a bit as well, but I did have a meal, and I didn't just use it for the Wi-Fi. But loads of people were there, sitting there working with their laptops. Yeah. It wasn't rammed. It was, it was probably quiet for like a lunchtime on a Wednesday, but. Yeah. The coffee culture down there is huge.
Massive.
Harbour Deli's just been reopened. So, I know Paul and his team that run down there. They're now open on Tuesday night, linked to the high tide with the fireworks. They've just had money now for a new oven so they can cook more things on site. They've got a drinks license. Like growing from strength to strength. But it could only be growing because people want to use it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And on top of that, right, the only thing I believe Puthcall needs, and this is my opinion, obviously, because I'm looking at from what I like to do, I see society as well. Everyone's getting bigger into their health, into their well-being, into the training. Like, there needs to be some form of a gym in Puthcall. Like, that's my only thing. There's a porta cabin there. Like, the facility.
At the back of the high tide.
Yeah, back of the high tide. It needs something else in my eyes because you go down the water this morning at 6:30. There's over 30 people in our community going for sea dips. There's runners.
God, they're braver than me.
Yeah, there's runners. There's people having a fire, having a coffee before they start their day at 7 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? That's to set themselves up. I just think it just needs a little bit more of that. Obviously, you've got Will's doing the sauna setup there, which is amazing. But it depends where you are. But I do think as a general society, health is becoming a priority. The pubs are always going to be there. Like people enjoy pubs, live music. I love live music. If you go to Asiad on a Friday night, is it Asiad?
Yeah. I can't remember what it used to be called.
It was Cozy Corner.
Cozy Corner, of course it was. Yeah, sorry, yeah. And it's more like Asian fusion.
Asian fusion, now, yeah. And that on a Friday night live music. I love live music, so that's my little spot there. But I love it there. Like I absolutely love Puthcall. But yeah, for me, like personally, I'd love to see the fair go down and build something else. So that's my opinion. But if, like you said, if you speak to people probably 40 or 50 years plus, they might say, "Oh no, my childhood was there and we love it."
And that is important, and that's why there needs to be some sort of space where you can have the temporary fair, short-term fair space, but then in the winter could be used for something else as an entertainment space. So I don't know, stores like I'm not saying Winter Wonderland like in Cardiff or Regent Street in London or Regent's Park even. Like I don't mean that, but you could definitely have something that would be an all year round facility that isn't necessarily the fairground all the year, because actually, you hit the nail on the head, because it isn't open all year round. No. So there's this perception that it is and it isn't. And I've had actually quite a lot of people contact me saying, well, is the Elvis Festival safe? I've had people from all over the country remember the Elvis Festival. Yeah. So my colleagues in Parliament come to the Elvis Festival. So it's really funny. One of my colleagues got elected last year. I was like, we've not met yet, but I just want to say, I come to Puthcall every year. My husband is an absolute nut for Elvis. She said, so I love Puthcall. Like, my kids have gone there and all the rest. So it's got a really good reputation for, depending on what it is you're interested in, 100%. Why you got a Puthcall for, So again, it's just about getting it right, and communication's important, making sure the developments are right, making sure the housing levels are right, but also making sure that you said about the gym. Look, I agree with you 110%. When I was door knocking in Puthcall last year, so in the run up to the general election, you do loads of door knocking. People will say things like, only ever see you at election time. But I mean, I door knock all the time. People still say only see you at election time. You just can't win. But I got 72,000 constituents. It's hard to knock every door between every election. But actually, one thing people raise with me over and over again is there's no gym in Puthcall, there's no spa in Puthcall, there's no saunas in Puthcall. There are now because there are two. Yeah. But what it means is that people will then say to me, so I go to your gym around the corner here now, in the same building as the Roo, so that they'll go there, or they'll go to Patalbot. So they're spending money outside of the borough because there's a lack of those sorts of facilities in Puthcall. And there's loads of history about why there's no leisure centre. There's loads of sort of rhetoric around that, some truth, some fiction. But would I like to see a gym provided in Puthcall? Well, yeah, of course I would. Yeah. Would I like it to be a bit more than a gym? Probably, yeah. I had a conversation with a business the other day, and I won't say who, because you've got to keep people's confidences, that they'd done a bit of a feasibility study on soft play in the town, because it's really lacking. Yeah. And there are loads of families moving into Puthcall, some with older kids, but a lot with younger kids. And people planning families. It's like, well, why do you have to travel out to? There's a really good soft play facility just over the border in the Elmore village, or actually not, it's in a Wenny village, I suppose. There's a nice soft play facility there, and this parent said to me, I don't know why I've got to travel to go and do soft play outside of Porthcawl when there's loads of families here that would, like to do soft play. So it doesn't mean that it necessarily works for, one couple or a different couple, but equally, I saw loads of people yesterday when I was down having a coffee and some lunch who are older, who clearly live in Porthcawl. Some people come over to talk to me. It will recognise me, which is still a very weird thing after all these years of doing this job. And it had done that very often. I'm hardly like a celebrity, but some people will go, they take a double take, go, you are MP, and I think, oh God, okay, what's going to happen now? And often people are lovely and just want to talk about stuff. But I was talking to this older couple who said, we just love it down here. Yeah. Like, we don't go out as much beyond Porthcawl now because they're retired. They've lived in Porthcawl for about 35 years. Okay. So they worked in they worked outside of Porthcawl. They didn't know they were going to retire there as well, but they've stayed. And they were like, oh, you've got a coffee shop, you've got a donut shop. And they were wax lyrical about the things that are going on in Porthcawl. When I went to meet Will in the saunas, there was a couple there, and I told this funny story when the camera wasn't running about I went into the sauna fully dressed because I was asked to. It was a very odd moment being dressed and talking to constituents who were dressed for a sauna, and I definitely wasn't. And they were saying, like, this for them has been absolutely life-changing for them because it's what they wanted. They love the coffee culture. They wanted a sauna. They do the cold sea dipping. And then they were talking to me about the need for like a gym and maybe a spa and something like 100%. That. So there's loads of support for different things in the town. Just got to make it work.
100%.
Get it right.
But for instance, like even, just off the top when you just said that, like I'm close with my family, but my relationship with my mum now is far closer because she comes sea dipping every Friday with us. You've seen the video?
I've seen the video. I literally saw the video one day. It appeared on my Instagram thread. I was like, I'm sure that's Porthcawl. And obviously I looked and it was, but it was one of those odd moments of seeing something on just a proper Insta thread and thought, why is Porthcawl? I think, something's happened, but it wasn't. You were taking your mum for a run.
Yeah, we went for a run. And on the Esplanade, and it's beautiful, and I think we just take for granted sometimes what's on our doorstep.
Yeah.
What's something that you would love to happen in the foreseeable in Porthcawl?
It's a good question. For me, the big thing I'd like to see on the front, so if you think about like the marina and Cozy Corner and the Whale, the park, and stuff like that. I love that part of Porthcawl. Like we take my boy down there all the time. We're back and forth to Porthcawl so much. But I think the front, sort of as you go round, where the new wall, where the wall is, and they've done all the regeneration work a lot as you're walking towards Coney Beach. You probably don't appreciate it, but like as a dad, my son loves that wall.
From the harbour
and he spends all his time walking along the seating area, up and down, and you see all these parents every day. So all the parents sort of like nod because you see the parents walking up and down this wall with their kids climbing all over the wall. So opposite there, where Salt Lake is, one of the parts of the regeneration consultation earlier in the year was they would close that road and they would put some provision there, like leisure facilities and all the rest of it along there, and some mixture of housing. I'd actually quite like to see that front just full of leisure, so that when you came down to Porthcawl, if the plan is to sort of be able to walk from, say, Piccolo Bar or Bouffies on that sort of far end before you get up around into Rest Bay, but just from maybe that point around, that as you walk around, there's just like a raft of stuff to do.
100%.
It's not like one thing. It's just one of the consultations is about having mini golf, and on the plans, it's like at the top end of the site. And you've got to get people to walk through the whole thing to experience it. And like I get that. But when someone comes into Porthcawl, you want to sort of be able to say, look, these are the things on offer. There's also loads of stuff like that, with ice cream parlours and whatever, cafes and high tide, and you've got the sauna and you've got growing grind, and you've got the dunes that they want to try and do a bit of it, because that's like exactly what you want. But it'd be good to have things that were quite front-facing, very leisure-focused, that could be used by people who live in Porthcawl as well as people that visit. That's the big change that I'd like to see, to try and make sure these things are like proper front and centre, so that when people say, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is I like to be able to say to people, well, that's the difference. You can actually see the difference. So it's not like one thing. It's just about saying, why can't mini golf be on the front? You probably can't put the pump track, but I love the idea of the pump track. I've had an education in pump tracks this last year, so because that's a really good thing for kids and kids and older kids, that want to use a facility for their BMXs, for biking and all the rest of it. And it's quite niche, as a facility in certain regeneration schemes, so it's a good thing for Porthcawl to have. More of that, please. More regen we can have, the better. So it's just a thing. It's not one thing. It's about making that regen work. And for me, over the next couple of years, for Porthcawl, loads of other stuff in Bridgend and Pencoed and other places, but in Porthcawl, it's about turning the front into a sort of leisure offer.
Love that.
Whether I can argue the toss with the council and lobby Welsh Government to do that is a different question. However, I like to think that lobbying and arguing in a non-confrontational sense is an important part of my job, to say, look, I'm not going to oppose certain types of housing. I'm not going to oppose housing. Got to have affordability. Got to have ways of ring fencing it but also, can we just try and make sure there's also things there for people as well who live here?
100%.
Because it's just an important part of what should be on offer. People who live in Porthcawl need to feel like the regen works for them as much as it'll work for a tourist, as much as it would work for someone moving in with a young family thinking, this seems like a lovely place, really good schools, really good vibe of living by the sea, good coffee culture, businesses like Maple that John Street thrives on, and they do a really good job of having that huge offer from those different shops. But what about the front there? What about that? Well, I sort of think the thing I'd like to see is you pull in and go, oh, right, there's this and there's that, and there's the year-round, what's that event space over there? Oh, in the summer it turns into a fountain, so the kids can get soaking wet in the summer, but it isn't an ice trap in the winter because we use it for something else. So it's just about having that sort of facility space there. The pavilion's a big thing. I spent a lot of time last year trying to make sure the money was secure for the pavilion. There's been some false starts on it. Things are working now. If you go down to Porthcawl, you'll see on Salt Lake the big blue, I forget what they're called. I want to call them crates. They're not called crates. All the sites being set up to do the development work on the pavilion. Gemma's doing brilliant work over on the site of the pantry box and the work that she does there.
What's some containers going on there?
So they're shop units that I think, as far as I know, the council has allocated all of them now. Quite a variety of different people will be based out of there. They did it temporarily with the pop-ups last year, I think, or the beginning of this year. It's worked, is my understanding from talking to some of the council officers, and they've now made a bigger site. I think they've got to do some regen work on the car park from memory, but it will link in really, really well with what Gemma does in the pantry box and the event she holds there, and the caravan next door where she's got like all these different classes going on. It's great. But it's a lovely thing to see when you arrive in Porthcawl. So it's a very long-winded way of saying, I suppose, to answer the question properly, is when you get to Porthcawl, I want to see things, not just there needs to be this number of housing or that. It's about offering something to people that live there and want to visit.
It's part, essentially, like, it's the ticking the boxes and making people happy. At the same time, let's really put a rocket up the arse and get some things popping at the front. Let's bring more eyes to Porthcawl. Let's bring more revenue into the area instead of people wanting to go out far west to make, like you said, the kids area, the mini pat, like little things like that. One thing I've listened to, like everyone's speaking about at the moment, and there's one in Coedymust, I believe, and there's one opening up somewhere else, but paddle. Have you heard much of paddle?
No, what's paddle?
Paddle is like I haven't played it, but there's a lot of my mates play it, but one particular guy, Reece Ward Jones, loves paddle. And it's basically another form of tennis. But it's like a lot easier, sounds like a drug, to be honest, because everyone's addicted to this new sport. I don't know where it started.
I'll have a Google. Paddle, right?
Paddle,
okay, right,
And you'll probably try to reach out to you after this, Reece, to try and get it on board. But it's so many people are like turning up. We said Porthcawl's tennis courts are making so many more
hours of bookings.
That's the same down at Coedymust. I think there's only 2 courts there, but you can't get in there. And he's trying to find a location in the borough to get it done with council permission, but I just know that that's the next craze in the area is paddle, and it's yearly around and all of these things. But I won't bore you with that. But Even on top of that. What's up, guys? This podcast is brought to you by UTest. UTest provides clinically accurate, rapid home testing kits for a variety of medical conditions and deficiencies. Designed for convenience, these tests deliver results in just 5 minutes, eliminating the need to wait days or weeks for lab results. The range includes tests for prostate PSA levels, bowel cancer screening, onset menopause to fertility, and more. All tests are available with the next day delivery at www.utest.co.uk. Use the code 0010 for 10% off your order. Now let's go back to the episode. The other week there was the Open, the Women's Open was in.
So I mean, look, golf is huge in Porthcawl. I mean,
do you like your golf?
So I do. I couldn't go because I was away. Yeah, it was like sort of long-standing family holiday. I do actually like golf. I like watching golf. I can't. So I think it's just the nature of like my personality. So whenever I play mini golf, I've never played a round of golf in my life. I say proper golf. Whenever I play mini golf, I am reliably informed that I can't play mini golf because I should be playing proper golf because I'm a bit too aggressive with the club, you know. So
flinging the club onto
no, I think it's more that I'm a bit too like I whack a ball as if I'm sort of playing golf, not playing mini golf. So whenever I do that, not very often, but I do, it's sort of like you need to play proper golf because you don't understand that you shouldn't be knocking that, you know, up over there. You're trying to get it through this tiny bit of a course or whatever it is. So no, I do like golf. I mean, look, the Women's Open, in the way the seniors was a couple of years ago, is such a fantastic thing for Porthcawl. You know, the Royal Porthcawl is, you know, certainly up there with, you know, global golf results. You know, I watched a bit of it when I was on holiday, and it's just pure curiosity to how Porthcawl was like being perceived within sort of like the sport broadcasters, you know. And I watched one section. I can't think what the presenters were. I can't remember. One of them was a very famous retired female golfer, and they were talking about the seniors 2 years ago, and the weather was a bit Welsh. You know, a bit cloudy, a bit wet. I was there on one of the days then watching it, and you couldn't see anything. And in fact, we were all still sort of staying in sort of all the tents because the weather was so bad. You're like, we're just not sure we can put you out there with this forced gale wind coming in off the coast and all the rest of it. And they were doing this piece on I think it might have been Sky Sports, and they were talking about Porthcawl and saying about, you know, this is a globally recognised golf course, you know, really, really sector leading within, you know, punching with its weight with some of the, you know, bigger golf courses around Britain and Ireland, and it was great to see. And they've reached out to me. So there's some conversations going on now about with the work the Open do, and you know, and trying to make sure that we keep Porthcawl on the map. And you know, I know that the Grove and the Royal Porthcawl do an awful lot of work now, bringing young people through with courses and tutors and all the rest of it. But like, it's also just a hugely important thing as a selling point and for the economy of Porthcawl. Like, I've had a couple of chats in businesses post the Women's Open. They saw their takings go through the roof. You know, it just makes people look at the town in a different way. And you've got to remember, as much as the seniors was a really important thing for the town, the Women's Open, I mean, that is a massive, massive thing to have in a seaside town in South Wales.
100%.
And it's about trying to bottle some of that and make sure that Porthcawl is recognised as like a sporting centre. And why shouldn't it be for golf?
Yeah, I totally agree.
You know, it's a big thing for the town. And
it just says a lot about what's going on there, though, right? That these things are happening.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you do in your own time? What do you do for fun?
I'm not sure anyone find it fun. So I'm a keen gardener.
Gardener?
So I grow a lot of my own veg.
Nice.
I'm currently in an ongoing war of words with myself over growing some purple broccoli stems. Don't ask. and Brussels sprouts. So yeah, I'm in this war of attrition with some local caterpillars. You know, and so I enjoy my garden. It's like a nice sanctuary, nice place for me to sort of just, you know, feel calm and all the rest of it. It's also, really therapeutic, you know, really, really therapeutic. And the other thing that we do a lot of when we can is just, you know, a lot of beach walking, just sort of like family time because in the job, not a complaint, like it's, you know, I wanted the job, but it's just sort of like having the downtime as like just the three of us is quite an important part of how we of how we sort of function. So that is a big part of just enjoying family time. So I don't know whether it's, you know, most people probably wouldn't go, oh yeah, I love, you know, just having my phone after hanging off me, you know, and watching films and stuff. But obviously, because I'm not home a lot, it's a big part of just like being a unit and having that downtime. So yeah, but my sort of pleasure and my frustration and my anger and everything else is all ploughed into the garden because, you know, if I'm, you know, I grow, God, I don't know, this year I've grown carrots, runner beans, tomatoes. I've got peppers this year for the first time ever. I've actually managed to grow peppers. Nice. I think it's because the heat, the climate is getting a bit worrying. So I was growing quite a lot of peppers this year. And I grow raspberries and strawberries and stuff like that. So it's a good thing as well for me and my son. So like, you know, I try and do a lot of stuff on the weekend in the garden where I can around work things. But an hour in the garden to me is just like a sort of total mental
switch off
release. And I haven't got to worry about the phone or anything else. And it just means I can just breathe a bit, which I like doing. You know.
Massively, I bet, because it's a very taxing job what you're doing, stress on the body and mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do learn to get a bit more resilient.
Yeah.
You do, because you've got to.
Yeah.
No other option, really, otherwise I think you drive yourself mad. But yeah, it's definitely just a way of sort of alleviating, you know, I go in. I've got a lot of, as I said earlier, I've been on holiday for a fortnight, come back. You know, I've got loads of deadheading to do, loads of cutting to do, loads of sorting out to do. I mean, it's only August, but you know, I'm sort of thinking, like, what have I got to do now about sort of autumn stuff and getting the garden sort of ready for that. And you know, so it's just a good thing to think about all the time. Like you've just got something else to focus on. And I probably only do an hour or two a week because of the work things that I need to get on with. But you know, it is a therapy. It undoubtedly is a therapy, but you know, it's probably a great cliche, or an MP likes gardening, or wow, you know, there's a great shock. You know, I'm afraid I'm not, you know, into rock climbing or anything sort of like, you know, high octane sports or anything, you know. So, but I do enjoy just sort of being in the garden, sorting stuff out, you know, having a row with a bramble. Whatever, you know, it's just,
mate, if that's what helps you, and it moves the needle forward for our area, you do whatever you want, mate. That's what I'm going to tell you, Chris. Mate, without you know, asking you too many questions, I want to find out a little bit more about you. What has been one of your toughest days as a Labour MP?
Oh gosh, I'm afraid for all the wrong reasons, it's remarkably easy. And it sounds like an odd thing to say, but I had only been elected for 3 weeks when Joe Cox, my colleague, was murdered. Now, I knew Joe before I was an MP, not very long before, but I did know her a little bit. And the same when David Amos was killed in Southend, he was a Conservative MP, Joe was a Labour MP, and those are always the hardest days. Because it's not about like public policy or having an argument with a constituent or anything like that. In some ways, that is just sort of part of what happens in the job. But, you know, someone being killed for doing their job, and you haven't got to be a politician, you could be a dustman, you could be a life coach, you could be a swimmer, you could be whatever. And, you know, two extremes of how Joe and David were killed by sort of, you know, different people years and years apart. But it makes you think about, is it really worth bothering with? Is it really worth the risk? You know, I was in Parliament when PC Keith Palmer was killed, when there was the attack on Parliament. You know, and oddly enough, it's you do feel it yourself. Of course you do, because you're a human being. Politicians are human, despite popular misconception. And we bleed and cry like everybody else does, and we have kids and we have parents and everything else. You know, but like my mum will occasionally say to me, "Are you sure you should be doing this job? You know, are you sure?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it." Like, but it's that thing of, I suppose I worry about the stress it places on people that care and love me, and then you see it the other way, where then say David is killed, and the impact it has on his family, has on his constituents. You know, just the other day, my colleague Heaven David has passed away very suddenly, the MS for Caerphilly, 47, 2 young kids. I knew Heaven really, really well. I think of him as a friend, know his partner, who's also a Senedd member. And there's been a huge outpouring of grief in Caerphilly for him because he was so well liked and sort of so supported. So it sounds a bit bleak to sort of talk about death, but the worst days, the 3 probably worst days was Joe being killed, David being killed, and then when Parliament was attacked. Because it makes you realise like the profound nature of, you know, the security of the job, or lack of security sometimes, you know, that people being killed for just doing their jobs. And for a lot of the time, I mean, people in Bridgend and Porthcawl, and if I went out into Cardiff and bumped into somebody, like most people, just want to have a chat. Sometimes people get a bit ratty, a bit shirty. There was a thing the other day where I was up in a pub in the constituency, and one particular guy was quite confrontational, quite angry. You try your best to diffuse those sort of situations, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that in the back of your head, you just go, oh. You walk away from it, and like everything's fine, like everything's completely fine. But you walk away and you sit in the car and go, oh, that could have been different. That could have been something that shouldn't have happened. And particularly with my family, my immediate family, like, you know, we go down Porthcawl for a walk, or we come into Bridgend for shopping, or whatever it might be, or I come in the morning. I don't ever think about these things, but you've sort of posed the question, and it makes you think about the worst day and all the rest of it. It's that you sort of think, I've got a 4.5-year-old. Some people don't blink to have a pop.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm an MP all the time. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job. Like, that's what the job is, right? People say, do you like the job? I say, well, it's a lifestyle choice, actually, because you've got to accept that it comes with good and huge privilege, but also can come with some quite bad bits, some quite aggressive bits, but also loads and loads of much more brilliant bits than there is anything bad. And you know, there was an issue last year, just after the general election. Someone came over to challenge me. They weren't particularly aggressive, far from it, actually, just in case for some reason they're listening. Or they watch this like tomorrow or something. Oh, that was me, that was. It was in Porthcawl, and I was with my boy. My wife wasn't with me, and this guy, though, was quite confrontational, quite sort of trying to square up. My son was literally holding my hand, and I had to say, look, could you book an appointment? Can we do this at a different point, you know, with my son? And oddly enough, the minute he sort of realised I was with my son, he was only 3.5 at the time. He had a growth spurt recently, so I mean, he really was a dut, but walking, obviously holding my hand and the rest of it. And then having to explain to my 3.5-year-old why that guy was trying to square up to me. You know, he just thinks I work on the telly, because when he's grown up seeing me on the green benches, so he'll tell me, oh, should we put the green telly on? Even now, my wife and I would joke about it, and sort of say, oh, where's Daddy? Oh, he's on the green telly, because he thinks the green bench is the green telly, even though he knows full well, now I work in London, he's older and he understands all that. But those sorts of confrontational things where people can be quite aggressive, and I do say to people, you don't need to shout at me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. Social media is the world's worst for this. I get people all the time comment on social media. People love being aggressive. People love being nasty. People get a kick out of it. And I will sometimes go back and say, you have a lovely evening, because you know, you could just book an appointment to come and see me. And I say to people all the time, come and see me. Here's the number to ring the office. Here's the number to book a surgery appointment. Here's the email account. I never hear from them. Or very rarely do I. Because they like to shout on social media, but they don't want to actually have a conversation in person. Whether it's because they don't want to talk to me, fine, that's life, you know. They've never met me. They can't possibly judge what I'm like without having a conversation with me. But also, they probably don't want to have someone say, well, that's what you've just said is actually not correct.
And put it back on them.
And say, well, to challenge what they say, because it's like, well, you can't just say, you know, I don't do anything in the constituency. That's always the easiest tack. You know, you claim too much money, you don't do anything in the constituency. Let's come and have a chat. Here's the appointments. You come and see me. I'm only here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm meeting someone tonight in Porthcawl for a coffee.
Nice.
Like, you know, like, it's not a problem. I'll meet people as often as I can in any context. Try and have a conversation with them, and we'll talk through stuff. Not a problem for me. But when you have the thing where Joe and David and Keith Palmer were killed, obviously two were politicians, one was a police officer doing his job, and you just think to yourself, oh God, you know, it's that thing of, you know, is this going to be it? Is something going to happen? But I'm very lucky, you know. You always get people say, so where do you live then? I live in in Kethyn. Oh, you live local, do you? It's like, yeah. And the minute you they realise that you live locally, you've got kids, and you're not sort of living in London in this ivory tower, and you don't know what's going on in the area, it does tend to sort of calm things down. So it's those days are the worst days, but it's also about the broader context of, you just think that if someone's going to come and have a go at you, fine, we don't have to sort of scream and shout about it. Let's just have a conversation. We have now.
100%. I like that. Have you ever thought about having like a bodyguard or anything?
So we do have close protection officers.
Cool.
So when we do things like surgeries, advice surgeries, I'd be clear, I've never undertaken surgery on any human being, nor would you want me to. But advice surgeries, I do coffee mornings. We do all sorts of face-to-face discussions in certain circumstances, like advice surgery, which are held all over the constituency every month. Do coffee mornings every month as well, so there's always close protection officers there. Most of them are specialists in supporting politicians. That's come out of Joe and then David being killed, because surgeries can be quite heated, can be quite charged. At one time when I was the MP for the North for the borough, I'd have open surgery, so I'd never know who was coming. We can't do that anymore because of security and safety. So I try and offer online surgeries, telephone surgeries, in-person surgeries, coffee mornings, where you can book in to see me. Amazing. We do 3 in person, 1 coffee morning, 1 online, 1 telephone, Saturdays, evenings, daytime, Fridays. So if you work, you get as much flexibility of me and my time as I can to make sure you can see me. So we have close protection officers. Some of my colleagues who are quite senior, I don't mean the Prime Minister, obviously he does, but other senior ministers, they will have close protection all the time. But as an MP, when you do some of the more front-facing stuff, not a podcast like this, clearly, you will have close protection officer, and sometimes 2, depending on what you're doing, and they will talk to you about exit routes.
Nice.
They will arrive early and do a sweep and all this sort of stuff. Very different from when I first started, because when I first started, none of this existed. So now you do have this element of bubbles of right, well, we're going to get you out if there's a problem, and we'll get you in the car and we'll take you away. You get you into your car and you drive away, and we'll deal with whatever comes. But you have, so in most MPs' homes, we have panic alarms, we have ways of protection for our family, because in a lot of the ways, I'm not there 4 days a week. I live quite anonymously in London 4 days a week. I work in one of the most secure buildings in the world. So it's incredibly secure. So a lot of the security is more for our families.
Nice.
So because they're there on their own, or with kids or whatever. So it's more important to have the security for them. But I carry a panic alarm that has an interactive response mechanism. Police have mobile numbers, so if you ring, you get a more automatic response. Nice. There's lots of security that goes with the job. Doesn't necessarily mean to say that I enjoy a lot of it, because it changed the job and sometimes can make you feel a little bit more inaccessible. But it's part and parcel of what goes with the job now.
It's interesting, man, just to know all of these things. I would never know about any of these intricacies that you learn or have to have close protection and the experiences you've had in the past. Do you have negative mail come to the house as well?
So there's threats.
Wow.
They're in writing, more often on email. You don't get many poison pen letters these days. Some of my colleagues do. Some particularly female MPs, really? They get far more abuse. Far more abuse on the basis of just being a woman and being a politician. Because people just feel they can be more aggressive, more violent. A number of my colleagues have had to appear in court because they've had really serious death threats. Some people have gone to prison for death threats. That I've had over the course of my time as an MP, some slightly more sinister threats, where some people have pleaded guilty to sort of quite intensive threats, and then there's been some decisions by judges around protections, and sentences for some of those people. But I don't get it in the way that a lot of my colleagues do. The most profound one is Diane Abbott, who's been an MP for nearly 40 years. She, by a country mile, receives the most abuse, most hatred. She's a woman, and because she's black, and she's perceived to be on the left of British politics, so that does tend to expose you to more things. But they've done like studies on it and Diane always comes out on top as being one of the most abused politicians in the country. And it's the wrong sentence, but it is the truth. It's part and parcel of what being a politician is now. And I don't genuinely think that's because of anything we've done as individuals, but it's about the collective thing of, politicians always come out as one of the least trusted professions, along with a few other professions that I will not name so I don't annoy anybody, but most people know that those sorts of professions are, and it ends up being, a bit of a collective pile-on then of politicians, and that we're all awful, we're all money-grabbing, we're all taking brown envelopes, etc., etc. None of those things are true, especially brown envelopes, to be clear, as far as I know. I certainly haven't. Don't know anybody who ever has. But it's that perception is easy to attack because you're a politician, so you're fair game.
Got you, man. It's a tough old road.
I enjoy the job. It's a good job. It's a really rewarding job. It's just sometimes you have to take the rough with the smooth.
What's been one of your proudest changes that you've implemented?
The law last year was a big thing for me, like a really big thing. So
is it personal?
No, thankfully not. No, it's not. No, it was just about talking to people who've experienced it.
Nice. And
sort of realizing, one, being a bit ignorant to like the problem that you can experience, this, not so much losing your partner in childbirth, that still happens in the UK far too much. But meeting, they were all fathers that were left, and just realizing you can't say it's a huge scale of a problem because it's not obviously, because it's hundreds of people, there's millions live in the UK, but for those people, this wouldn't even apply to them because you don't change the law retrospectively, but it's by helping people in the future moving forward to make it better. And you're meeting dads who are raising 18-month-year-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, and I can't quantify how they get through their days. Maybe now as time goes on and you learn to recover and you learn to manage the grief while raising a newborn baby. But like if you imagine you were going to do this as a couple, then all of a sudden it's just one of you. But you've also got to work, pay the bills, pay a mortgage, raise the baby, grieve, have all the joy of having a kid and all the grief of losing a loved one. So that that is a big thing for me in terms of sort of something at a national level. I mean, on a local level, the constituency's only been changed a year, so it's very difficult to sort of say, oh, look, there's this investment or there's this argument. I'm doing a lot of lobbying now about trying to get regeneration funding for Bridgend Town Centre. I was really glad that we got the regen money confirmed for the pavilion because it was a bit up in the air, putting it mildly, and we've got an extension on that funding to make sure that we can deliver the scheme. It's not me delivering the scheme. I'm just in many ways, politicians are like mouthpieces. We're there to try and argue and lobby for our own communities to get investment. Obviously the council will deliver the scheme, but actually a contractor will deliver the scheme that's been awarded by the council, and so on and so forth, and it goes. But that is a big thing from last year, that so few MPs get to change the law as individual politicians. I mean, it really is unusual. So to get it all the way through both the Commons and the Lords, get it on the statute book. I haven't got a copy of it because I don't know how it works, but the King signs the bill into law, so it becomes an act of Parliament. It's just been implemented in the last couple of weeks as well, so the legislation's been implemented. So it's just a really positive thing to do. I'm kind of hoping I can look back on this term, which will end in 2028 or 29. I might get re-elected, I might not. But I hope I can look back and go, right, okay, well, we've delivered the pavilion, we've delivered more regen in Porthcawl, we've got a plan for the town centre, for Bridgend Town Centre, that we can see tangible things that can be delivered. But there are nice things, like you mentioned earlier about Chris and Glyn in Porthcawl Gin. Like I've been working with them for about Chris. 8 months, and they been back and forth with them, supporting them to try and get them into the old kiosk in Porthcawl. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that I've delivered Porthcawl gin on the seafront. They have.
You've helped.
They're phenomenal. Like, I mean, they're just, they're intoxicating how happy they are, how engaged they are, and putting Porthcawl on the map for another reason with the gin. And the gin is very good, I can confirm. Yeah. I'm very fond of their gin. But it's being in the room with them, helping them by lobbying the council, getting involved and trying to make sure they get the contract. There's been another little hiccup fairly recently, which has been fixed, touch wood. They're now looking at whether they could do some sort of outside provision. So I've been able to chat with them about that. It's about opening doors and lobbying on behalf of people like Porthcawl Gin, and there are other examples of that right across the constituency. So they're tiny wins in terms of what people may think a politician's job is, but actually a politician's job is the tiny wins. Because a lot of the time, I'm not responsible for building Bridgend College. Like, for goodness sake, I'm not. But I have been very involved over the last year about dealing with the issues around the old car park, because that was delayed. So I've done a lot of work working with the principal to try and get that back on track. Not her fault, very much, definitely not her fault, but working with the agencies that were delaying on getting the transfer done. There was a problem over the land management over in Bridgend College in the new site. So I did quite a bit of lobbying on that. But it's behind the scenes. It's not about having everything as a picture and going, oh, look at me, aren't I amazing? But to the people who know I've been involved in that, that's important, because it's important to me that they know I'm doing my job. But secondly, it's about trying to make sure that the regen is a really good thing for Bridgend and Porthcawl. It's that simple. Because I live here, I don't want it to be crappy and everyone just slag everything off all the time. Because we've had, particularly in Bridgend Town Centre, we've had 10 years of that. Funnily enough, it hasn't worked. Oddly enough, it hasn't worked. So why don't we try a different approach and say, we can deliver things in Bridgend Town Centre, we can bring about regen, we can lobby for investment and see if that works. Because the other end doesn't work.
It's not working, for sure, man.
Not at all. So try something different.
It's that, like you just said, though, you mentioned the 2 guys in the gin. I know, Chris, you want to be around vibrant people who are wanting to see the positives in life and trying to re-energize the area. Can't have too many Debbie Downers, trying to instill that. We've got to, like, you see these youngsters now, like you said, Corner Coffee, there's youngsters, there's Hictala, there's Grow and Grind, Epithcall, you've got Bridgend Town Centre now, all the restaurants. There's young, vibrant people trying to engage. You either buy in or...
I mean, it's such a good example with the business, the restaurants and the bars. And, Bridgend has a number of cocktail bars, which is a strange thing to think about in Bridgend Town Centre. But they're growing because people want to use them. So the nighttime economy is definitely growing. We've got to solve the daytime economy problem, right? I'm not going to try and sit here and say the daytime economy is fantastic. It obviously isn't, and we need to improve it. But you've equally got to acknowledge, I know people who jump on a train from Cardiff to go to a steak restaurant in Bridgend. And people can believe me or not. I know it's true because I've been told that's what they're doing, because they can get an early train from Cardiff into Bridgend. They then get the train back because it's at the top of the hill. Central Station, live in Cardiff, wander back, job done. They have a nice night out. Because they don't necessarily want to be out in Cardiff. I don't know why they don't want to be there, but they don't. They want to come here. And then we've got Italian restaurants and Asian fusion restaurants and tapas restaurants and sushi, exactly. But like it's a bit niche, and you haven't got quite the level of, I don't know, manic Friday night chaos on High Street or St Mary Street. So they might be appealing to a different clientele. But you look at what's happening now with BGR up on Norton Street. They're opening a restaurant in the old carpet shop. It's been empty for as long as I can remember. Probably not that long, but it feels like it's been empty for ages. I'm not behind any of that regeneration. They are, and good luck to them. But isn't it fantastic that there can be another type of specialist restaurant in town where you can go and have a really good burger rather than nipping into Cardiff? Because you can probably bet they'll go from there into the Dubliner that's just been opened, or they'll come up here to the Loft and they'll use the karaoke bars and all the rest of it. Well, why can't Bridgend be a bit of a foodie capital hub? Same as Porthcawl, there's a new tapas bar that's opened in the old bank. It was down there on Saturday. It's heaving. Absolutely heaving. So there's plenty of money here.
100%.
We have to incentivize people to come in and open up, and also, by the way, crucially support people that are running businesses in the towns.
Definitely,
you've got to make sure they get the support as well at the other end. You can't just say, "Oh, open a business, fantastic, job done." You've actually got to put your money where your mouth is and make sure there's more broader support from the council and other partners, but like making sure they thrive as well. So slightly more serious message there, but it is important. You've got to come in and use it. You can't just say everything's rubbish and never go into town and say, okay, then well, you can't complain then. If you come in and actually see what's here, you see there are things opening up. There's also some things that have closed. I'm not trying to say there hasn't been, but if you use it, it'll be sustained, it'll grow, more footfall, more shops.
Love that.
Circle is quite important in that sense.
100%, man. Man, I love your vision. I love your energy. I'm really grateful actually for you to come on today. Like, it means a lot to me that you were willing to.
No, not at all. Glad to. Yeah.
And you never know, man. I might get you down for a sea dip one day.
Well, funnily enough, when I was at the Litter Pick on Wednesday, I bumped into lads and dads who were there, and I know them a little bit, and they do some astonishingly good work. And I think Ian from Lads and Dads, if he does ever see this and goes to the end of the podcast and sees me saying this, I think he somehow has convinced me that a sea dip on a Sunday, I think it was, at 8 o'clock, is somehow going to be a good idea. So if I have a heart attack and there's a by-election, we know what's happened. But yeah, I love swimming.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I've never done it. And there's like a fear factor of thinking if I just had a conversation with the Porthcawl Christmas Day swim a couple of weeks ago at the Porthcawl 200 celebrations, never met them before. I was like, oh, you should come down. And I left back in the car and was like, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah, what have I said? I've
talked myself into something now. So yeah, I love water, I've got no fear of water, but I think I've got a slight inert fear of freezing cold sea in the winter. So I don't know. So we'll see. But
we're in August at the moment. So
yes, it's warm enough. No, that is very true. Yeah, that is true.
There was 30 of us this morning.
Right.
But in February there'd be about 4 of us because it's that's when it's the.
You've got to be really hardcore. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm there yet.
We might get you there. One gift I want to give you a gift actually. It's one of my journals. You were talking about earlier how you like to decompress because of with gardening. I'm a big believer in brain dumping. So whenever we feel a bit stressed out, it's a bit of a journal. So I've got it over here. I'm just going to grab it now.
Oh, thank you.
No worries, man. I'll give Lee one as well. One for you two guys.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
The 90-day journals are goal setting journals. I don't think you're going to be short of goal setting and whatnot, but we might get the other aspects of it. It's a daily journal, man. But I just want to say thank you from me. One thing I want to ask you before I wrap up, Chris, is what are you grateful for?
Lots of things. Sorry, I shouldn't do that on a podcast, cover my mouth. I should know better. Lots of things, but by a country mile being a dad.
Yeah.
No greater feeling in the world. Even at 4 a.m. in the morning when he's negotiating to get up because the sun's up in the summer, which apparently kids don't seem to understand that summers are lighter. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt, being a dad. I'm grateful for a whole host of things, including the job. I'm very, very grateful for it. Like, it's a huge privilege, but there's got to be a line, isn't it? And I love the job. I love doing the job. It's enormous fun sometimes, and you meet people from every walk of life. But there is nothing better than being at home on a weekend when you're in London all week, and like he's talking about school and he's talking about whatever he's been doing. And my wife would sometimes laugh because she'd be like, it's funny how the other day you'd be talking to the Prime Minister and you come up with and you're talking to our son, and we're talking to, he's currently obsessed with Spider-Man and Lego. So I spent hours building Lego in my spare time, which I used to love doing as a kid. I now find it very, very stressful as a parent. There's nothing cathartic in building Lego because he's like, right, can we do it now? Can we do it now? So, but I love being a dad. Yeah. It's just magic. It's absolute magic. It's something that brings me, and obviously I'm sure lots of other dads, just this grounding laughter. It's a release, but equally all consuming. It's a difficult way of explaining it, and I don't know whether you can understand it unless you are a parent. But I don't really remember life before him, and I had quite a long time before I had any children. I was in my mid to late 30s. So it's that thing of, all right, what was life before him? I don't remember, but it's great. It's lovely, And like tonight, we'll be out. We're going down to Porthcawl tonight I've got a meeting, and they're going to join me later, and I'll go from discussing problems over litter bins, bin access, and stuff like that in Porthcawl tonight. That's one of my last meetings of the day. And then I'll be with him in the evening, and I can guarantee there will be an absolute carnage row over soft ice cream in the Piccolo bar, or soft scoop ice cream in Fabulous. Because every time we go there, there's always the same debate. I don't know what I want. It's like, well, you've got to pick, haven't you? Well, I don't know what I want. Which one are you going to have? I said, no, look, he's only 4.5, but honestly, it's like talking to a grown-up. And you say, and I go, I don't know which one. You tell me which one you want. I can't make you pick. You need to decide. But it's great because it's a complete and utter sort of mind reset when you're a dad. And I don't know whether that's the same no matter what your job is. But there's no way I can be Chris Elmore MP when I'm his dad. Because he don't care. Not as my wife for that matter. When I put the bins out, I do the recycling. I clean through. You got all my stuff on. Because you're a family and you got stuff to do. However, then something will happen. The phone goes off and you're like, right, I'm back into that mode because you got to do it. And I think sometimes he probably finds that frustrating. But no, it's the thing that I'm grateful for more than anything. And there's a lot to be grateful for. But being a dad is, as I say, it's magic. There's no greater thing in that sense.
Love that, man, and I'm sure he's grateful for you to be his dad too.
Ask me in 10 years.
Hey, mate, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.